Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Trading the Markets. Of course, we're joined by Kris Bullock, aka Blasto Plas. And if you just saw that nice, beautiful little intro, there's something coming to Real Vision. So you can join right now on the wait list, sign up. I hear there's prizes. I hear there's an intern going rogue and giving away even more prizes. So you'll want to join the wait list and see what's coming. So just head over right now. You can scan the QR code and get ready for what's coming. Kris, happy Wednesday, happy hump day. What's going on today?
Well, I want to start off with an X post that basically sums everything up perfectly right now. We're in fact basically the ball in a ping pong match, being batted back and forth. And this tweet here sums it up perfectly. Basically, it just says China hopes market pressure will push the U.S. to negotiate. China expects recent trade tensions to hit U.S. markets, hoping losses will prompt President Trump to offer concessions. After pausing mutual tariffs earlier this year, both sides remain cautious amid renewed trade frictions. So basically, that's what's happening. The catalyst from Friday that caused everything to kind of melt down is still happening effectively. They're still going back and forth, and I think we're going to continue to see volatile price action, very choppy price action, until there's some sort of resolution, whatever that may be in this case. And so, in the meantime, it's kind of just wait it out. Don't do anything. I don't really think either. Well, I don't think Trump is going to let the markets fully nuke, outside of just some wonky wicks to the downside here and there. And I think we'll see some kind of resolution sooner rather than later. So with that said, to sort of preface everything and kind of set the tone, let's look at what that translates to in terms of charts. And so right now we're seeing, and what I'm going to kind of focus on lower timeframes this week. I want to kind of stick to the 4-hour time frame. I was using that on the Monday show too. And the reason for that is because there's just a lot going on right now. And again, things are very choppy. And I think it's a little bit more useful to zoom in and see things slightly more granular right now to kind of get a sense of just what things are doing structurally. So we know we had a decent bounce Sunday that came into a nice Monday recovery, and then since then we've rolled back over again, and we're sort of retesting the range lows, I guess, if you will. But we're starting to see some bullish signs, and actually some of the other big altcoins like ETH and Solana, which I'll get into in a minute, look quite a bit better structurally than Bitcoin does in this moment. But we had a bounce back down to these range lows. Currently, it's holding as support, and we've got a nice bullish divergence flag here that is forming, that is signaling that momentum could be starting to shift back to the upside, so that it's sort of, again, giving weight to this idea that this range low is going to hold as support. However, I have talked about, I do think that we've got this other low here and then this ultimate low here, back on, the beginning of September. And I do think that this is kind of ultimate final support. And what I mean by that is we might occasionally see a wick or two lower, but as long as it doesn't really start having meaningful closes below, say, this level here, I'm not really going to worry about it. We might see some people freak out. We might see some ugly wicks to the downside, but as long as they're just kind of intraday wicks, again, don't worry. Just kind of, again, write it out and it'll be fine. I think also outside of that, we're seeing some decent macro stuff starting to form. I wanted to touch on, like, the dollar index had a nice reversal, and it's funny, like, yeah, it's shown some strength here. It kind of reversed its trend on the daily time frame. But if you look, we've got a structure here of let me grab this tool here. We've got basically a series of lower highs and lower lows. And this was actually even lower still, and this was a lower high, and it's rolling over. So despite it being in a temporary uptrend, and you can see it's even been going longer than that, the larger trend still remains slightly to the downside. And I do still think my base case still is that we will see this dollar index continue to go down. Meanwhile, we've got a nice little uptick in liquidity here. And then also in terms of liquidity, we've got the 3-month rate of change. Like, this had barely started to tick up on Monday, and now on Wednesday it's ticked up even further. So kind of a promising sign there in terms of the rate of change. That's what I've been looking for, was a bottoming in this and a reversal. And this is showing us that basically the foot is, the accelerator is starting to get pressed in terms of the liquidity environment, and we're starting to see more come into the space. And then not only on the 3-month, but also on the year on year, it has also ticked back up too, and has a nice reversal as well. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that like the conditions are being further laid for continued upside. And yeah, I like what I'm seeing there. Also, we touched on the ETF inflows on Monday, and I wanted to kind of revisit that as well. We had an ugly kind of down week last week, obviously, as we know, that were sort of net outflows. But since this new week has started, we've got actually a net inflow on both Bitcoin and Ethereum. We've got 102 million net inflow on Bitcoin, and 236 million net inflow on Ethereum. So we're starting to kind of reverse that ugliness we're seeing. We're starting to see TradFi dip its toes back into the crypto space a little bit in terms of the ETFs. So this was a promising sign. I did say, I remember on that show too, that there was a decent chance we would see some outflows, for a day or two, but that likely let's wait until let's see how the week finishes out and see what that looks like, come Friday or even next week. And so we're still net down on the week, but a net up day at least is a step in the right direction. So I like what I'm seeing both in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum on that front. And then finally, one of the other things I wanted to touch on is AI stocks continue to rally and continue to surge against Bitcoin. So this chart here is sort of an aggregate of about 25 AI stocks weighted and measured against Bitcoin, and we can see that it's been in a solid uptrend since May, and after a slight dip here at the beginning of the month, it's been killing it. It's been cooking. So. AI stocks, man. I keep coming back to AI stocks are the new alts. They're kind of the place to be in a way. And, don't fade that. I think that it warrants paying some attention to what's going on in that sector, because clearly it's doing better than Bitcoin. And it's probably going to continue to, until Bitcoin really catches a bid and goes on a serious run. And we see that it's sort of done this in the past where it'll run for some months, 6 months plus, and then Bitcoin will do that. It'll do its thing and it'll rip and just blow AI stocks out of the water for then another 6 or 8 months. And so it's sort of going in these cycles, and maybe that'll come to an end soon, because we can see that they're about this long, in each of these stretches before Bitcoin just rips. So maybe this is foreshadowing, a reversal in Bitcoin and another leg up, which I think we all think is coming. So, yeah. Anyway, that's where things are at.
Fantastic intro. No, fantastic intro. Love that Walter Bloomberg tweet that you shared to kind of break down where we are and just remind us that we're all pawns in this game, right?
Right.
That's the game that we are in. Just a reminder, guys, you can post your questions for Kris on Twitter or X, or also on the live platform. We'll take as many as we can. And also, this show is free every Wednesday. But if you want to get our longer TA show, you want to get access to Kris's entry-level crypto portfolio and Joe Bland's entry-level equity portfolio and the rekt AMA, just head over to realvision.com and sign up for RV Connect. Connect here is how you get access to all of these contents. So let's dive into a question. You kind of addressed this already, but I want to address this more directly because Fernando is asking a question I think is on everyone's mind. Hi, guys. Where do we go from here after the Friday wipeout? Obviously, Friday, we had the largest liquidation event in crypto history. I've been hearing conflicting theories that this is the start of a bear market, while others say it's just noise. We'll appreciate your non-financial advice. Kris, what do you have to say to Fernando about where we go from here after that wipeout?
I remain firmly in this is just noise camp. I don't think that this is the start of a bear market. It doesn't make sense from just a larger macro standpoint, and a longer term. I can still make lots of arguments for why all financial markets are going to continue well into the upside, well into next year even. And so it just wouldn't make sense for crypto or Bitcoin or anything to be starting into a year-long bear market phase while there's all this macro information pointing to continued upside for everything going for some time now. And I think it's important too to compare it to the previous 4-year cycles. And note that in the sort of the timing bands for when the crypto market in say late 2021 and in late 2017, the macro picture was much different. Everything was very overheated. Everything had been running for some time already, and there were hawkish pivots. There were rate hikes starting basically and things like that. And we're still like in a rate cutting phase and are going to be in a rate cutting phase for some time. Jerome Powell just earlier this week was talking about ending QT. Now that doesn't mean he's going to immediately engage in QE right away necessarily, but ending QT is not something that they do in an overheated market where everything is about to peak, and so nothing from what I'm hearing from Powell, from the Fed, from the liquidity environment, from like the PMI, none of that is saying that like everything is cooked. It's more the opposite. It's all saying that we're kind of just getting ramped up. We're still in sort of this sort of macro like spring summer season type regime, and as opposed to like fall winter like we were again in late 21 and 2017. So there's outside of a few ugly technical indicators like bearish divergences on like weekly timeframes and stuff, and of course the fact that the previous two cycles did sort of peak around the same time, is the only thing that's sort of lending itself to that argument. But again, remember that the reason those cycles peaked at around this same time, those last two times, was driven by the larger macro environment, not anything specific to do with Bitcoin or like the halvings or the 4-year cycle or anything like that. Those cycles were dictated by the macro, not the other way around. And so the macro has changed for this cycle, hence so has crypto, so has stocks and everything else. So that's why I'm firmly in the camp of this is just noise in the moment. And like we started off with the show, like that announcement, we're being batted back and forth between the US and China right now, and the markets are just kind of flapping in the wind until there's some kind of agreement that can come into place, and then I feel like things will rip again. So that's where I'm at.
Very nice. So you actually also answered another question within that answer that you gave. So Ruth, he definitely touched on your question on Q4, but she has so it seems like, the other part of her question was, do you agree with Julian and Rao that the bull market extends into early 2026? It seems like you're kind of leaning towards that way based on what you said, but I wanted to ask you that a little more directly.
Yes, definitely. And it's premature, but I can make arguments for why it might go even later into 26, potentially into late 26. And it's funny, like my current sort of base case, if you will, that's floating around in the back of my mind is I think we have a strong run that goes maybe into Q1, possibly into the early stages of Q2. I won't be surprised to see potentially a reasonable sized dip through the summer months, like we've typically had the last 2 years in a row, where it's just kind of chopped sideways from say April to like September, and then Q4 just rip again. I could easily make a case for that, and part of the reason I keep coming back to that, is because we know that. One, there's a lot of regulatory legislation that's working its way through Congress that won't come into play until next year. We also know that Jerome Powell's term ends in May of next year. There's a potential scenario where he doesn't even stay for his full term. Now, that's up to him more so than not. But whether he stays until May or leaves early, we know that the next Fed chair is very highly likely going to be very pro-crypto and very pro Trump in terms of like continuing to run the economy hot. And so once that sort of formally comes into place, then that's going to continue to provide momentum to the crypto space and to just equities and risk assets in general. And so, and again, none of that happens until like Q2 of next year. So that's why potentially we could see things continue to run, especially if some of those regulatory legislations come into play, and we get like a market structure bill and things like that actually sort of start to stabilize the markets and cause things to keep running. So I don't know how that's ultimately going to play out, but a lot of this is, again, floating around in the back of my mind, and it's a logical argument for why things could play longer than they typically would, or that we would think they would.
Yeah, and you'll definitely want to keep an eye on our content, because I'm sure Raul and Julian will be looking at this and will be letting us know when that time is approaching, especially with the macro investing tool. So keep an eye on those. So, Kris, I actually wanted to take also this question from Muhis. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but he has a question about alt season, and he wants to know: does alt season mean the end of the cycle? Like, is that the final leg up? Been thinking about that. This is my first cycle.
So I don't know. I feel like the term alt season sort of means something different to everybody that you ask. And some people say, oh, we've had little mini alt seasons that last a week or two or three here and there. And then other people say, oh, alt season lasts 6 months, and it's sort of what this is all about and what it all kind of culminates in. I feel like it's funny. I almost feel like people need to get that word out of their mind. Like, I don't think about alt season. Just like everything is generally, like, if you kind of go back and look at how this 4-year cycle has played out thus far, it's just kind of gone in little cycles where Bitcoin will run for a little while, alts will run for a little while, Bitcoin will run for, and so on. And it just kind of keeps repeating. And sometimes alts run together with Bitcoin, other times they don't. And so I think, but in general, if you've been in the right alts, you've either been generally going up most of this time, or if you've been in the wrong alts, it's generally been going down most of this time. And I think this 4-year cycle is different than previous 4-year cycles for two very big reasons. One, there's like 10 times more alts this cycle than there was even last cycle, if not even more. I mean, I'm just pulling this number out, but there's a lot more. So that means the pie is that much bigger, which means there's that much more money that has to come into the alt sector in order to move the needle, really. And so you have this big dilution happening with alts. And then on top of that, it's been very, very focused. It's been very kind of sector driven. Like, we've had meme coins run because we had this meme coin rally with Solana blowing up and things like that earlier. We've had DeFi blowing up here and there on occasion. We've had some DEX tokens and stuff blow up here on occasion. But really, I feel like you need to kind of just get the idea out of your head that we're going to have this broad-based alt season where, like, literally everything is just going to blow up like it did last 4-year cycle. I don't know that that's really going to happen. I think that this time around, you need to be a lot more selective, and you need to just kind of do your homework. You need to be on top of there's really been only about 50 or so assets on an ongoing basis that I think have outperformed Bitcoin for the better part of this year. And you need to kind of just be active and be looking at those and be focusing on things like the altcoin season index on CoinMarketCap and on our shows, the Monday show that we do, where we literally break down all the good stuff that's been running for months now. And really just kind of be focused on that and narrowed on that. And don't try to sort of front run an alt season by betting on something that's been going down for months and months on end, assuming that we're going to get this big mega rally and it's going to make back up all those losses and go on and do another 10x from here. Like, I feel like if you are approaching alts in that fashion, you're playing with fire, honestly. Like, I think it's better to just be focused on the stuff that has been doing well for the last 6 to 8 months, that has been outperforming Bitcoin for the last 6 to 8 months, and know that those are likely the ones that are going to continue to outperform, and just kind of focus your attention on those.
Well said. Well, speaking of alts that are doing very well, and kind of alluding to your AI talk at the beginning of this show here, Adam Spear has a question about just that. So most alts are still struggling following the crash, but TAO has recovered and accelerated. Do you think this could be a breakout alt over the coming weeks? I think Raul interviewed Barry Silbert. Yes, he did, Adam, and about TAO a while ago, and highlighted great potential back then. What are your thoughts, Kris? Let's take a look at that chart.
Yeah, so let's look at, so I got the TAO chart here. Again, this is on the 4-hour, just because we're sort of focused on the immediate right now. It obviously blew up, or melted down rather, like everything else did. It has had a nice recovery. I fully acknowledge that. From the research that I've done, from the insiders that I've asked, I kind of know some people in that ecosystem. This is largely off of the back of DCG, of Barry Silbert's company, announcing that they filed for a BitTensor ETF. And so this is, I think, largely speculative price action based on that, and that outside of that, there hasn't really been any fundamental change with the way the BitTensor blockchain runs. We know there's still some kind of issues with sort of the internal incentive mechanisms and things like that, that has resulted in a lot of validator selling, basically validators selling their tokens, which is again resulting in sort of downward price action just to kind of pay for their operations and things like that. So I'm still waiting for some kind of underlying fundamentals to change in the BitTensor blockchain before I think it's really going to rip. But obviously, this is a good sign. I think, too, of course, if the ETF gets approved, that's an even better sign, and that will juice this asset. But that's probably months away still, and so it's not going to surprise me if some of this, rolls back over and kind of round trips a little bit. I don't know that it's going to fully round trip everything. I think it will sort of trend with the rest of the market. But in the immediate, I don't know that this announcement is going to be enough to sustain TAO, over the coming weeks. And in fact, since it's rolled over here on the 4-hour already, I would kind of wait. Like if you're not in it, I don't know that I would jump in right now. I would sort of wait to see if this is going to reverse and see where this settles before buying, because it might fade based on the hype, So we'll see.
All right, let's head over to Gary Hollins's question. What's your current view on MicroStrategy? I've traded it over the past couple of years, but what about your thoughts on a hold longer term? Would you rather hold Bitcoin over MicroStrategy?
Personally, yes. I would rather hold Bitcoin over MicroStrategy. I'm not a super expert on MicroStrategy, but I've been following Jamie Kutz's work a lot on it and talking about MNAV and everything. And his take, I'm going to kind of defer to him on this, but he actually removed it from his pro crypto portfolio fairly recently. And his take is that it's not going to outperform Bitcoin for the duration of this cycle. Maybe over the longer term, it will, because it kind of will make up some of those losses in the bear market phase and in the sort of accumulation phase of, say, the next 4-year cycle. It might gain some of that ground back, but say between now and whenever Bitcoin sort of peaks, quote unquote, whether that's 3 months or 6 months or 9 months from now, his take is that Bitcoin will outperform it during that span. So again, he's the expert on this more so than I, and I'm going to defer to him. But that was his take. So yeah.
All right, great. Thank you for the question there, Adam, and everyone. Thank you for the questions. They're great questions. Keep them coming. So this next question comes from Benedict Mitchell. Bitcoin, ETH, and SOL and others seem to be lagging significantly when compared with the NASDAQ, especially since the weekend. Oh yeah, definitely since the weekend. Yeah. So what do you think will get confidence back into the crypto market? How long will crypto continue to underperform?
Well, I think crypto will continue to underperform until there's some kind of a trade agreement in place. I think that the underlying fundamentals, the framework for crypto to run, are in place, based on some of the macro stuff that I talked about at the top of the show. But I do think that because crypto is the furthest out the risk curve in terms of, I guess, risk assets these days, they're going to continue to be the most volatile sector until we get some sort of stability in the market. And even with the stock market, I know I think it will continue to be volatile as well. Yes, it's up now. Yes, it's done well, although it was down yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. I know I have a couple of stocks that were down yesterday, and so anyway, I do think that we'll continue to see volatility in general across the board, even though we have a nice green day in stocks today. I'm not expecting that to just be up only from here either. So. Yeah, again, it's all really down to the trade agreement, honestly.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of AI, the AI stocks especially are kind of taking a lot of that thunder from crypto because, like you were saying, they move like altcoins. Some of them move like meme coins, and it's pretty crazy to watch. And also, just a reminder, we did share, if you watch our weekly TA show on Mondays, and if you are watching it on the platform, you can head over to that show. And in the comments section, I shared Kris's AI stocks watch list, so you can check out all the stock AI stocks that are on his watch list by just checking out that link in the comment section of the last video. Okay, this question comes from Leandro McEnroe. DeBridge is looking like a quality pick and shovel in the Solana ecosystem. Do you have any thoughts on that? That's pretty new to me. I don't think I've heard of DeBridge. Has that come across your radar by any chance, Kris?
It has not. Is that what's the symbol?
I don't know the ticker. He just typed in DeBridge. Leandro, if you want to provide the ticker for us, we can definitely check it out
I
and
think
do
it's
some
maybe
live
this. I'm
TA
going to see
here.
what this. I think I have it here. Let me kind of zoom out a little bit and just take a look at the chart. I'm not familiar with this project, so I can't really speak to its fundamentals or what it is, but I can sort of look at the chart and I mean, yeah, okay. So let's see. From it bottomed in June. What's it up from there? I don't know anything about its market cap either. I mean, it's doing okay, I guess. There's definitely some alts that are better. I don't know. It doesn't look bad. It obviously looks like it has a bid. It looks like people are buying it. It's in a sustained uptrend on both the daily and the weekly time frame, I guess, which is good. So I think if you're holding it, keep holding it. But I can't speak to its like potential upside or anything like that. But it looks, just from the chart alone, I wouldn't say, oh, that looks terrible, run away or anything like that. I think, again, it looks good. It looks like it's managed to hold its uptrend. It looks like it's managed to not set all-time highs, but after the launch. But it looks like it's crunching away and doing what it needs to do. All the moving averages are in the right order here. I want to actually take a look at it on this indicator real quick too, just to see if this has any more insight. And then I'll look at it on the daily as well. Yeah, okay. I mean, it had a bit of a wobble, obviously, as everything else did on Friday, but it has recovered nicely. It's regained its momentum. It never really lost its track line here. It's got the green dots. It just needs to kind of switch back to green candles, but it has got momentum to the upside. And I think it's going to recover this uptrend. It looks like it's well on track to recover this uptrend. So yeah, I think DeBridge is a decent looking chart. If like I said, if you want to keep holding it, keep holding it.
Thank you for the question, Leandro. All right, Kris, so we're coming up on time here, but I wanted to ask you, what are a couple of coins that right now you would feel confident holding? Maybe not a set it and forget it, but something that you would feel confident holding into maybe if we do have that extended cycle. What are just, a few of those that you can recommend or suggest that you would like to or feel okay holding?
I mean, just off the top of my head, I really think that, as I mentioned this on Monday, the top 10 has largely been doing better than most. And, I think your odds of holding anything, doing well, holding anything in the top 10 will serve you. Outside of that, Hype is one that I think will still continue to do well. Yeah, but like largely stick to the top 10. Ethereum, Solana, BNB, maybe XRP. Hype again is down towards the bottom of that list. And then it's funny, like one thing I'll point this out because I pointed it out on the Monday show too. This was super interesting to me. Is exchange tokens and largely centralized exchange tokens. They tend to do well because a lot of them accrue value back to the token. They take the fees that they make from their exchange and they use it to either burn tokens or buy back tokens, or generally, reduce the circulating supply, which drives value to the token, which increases the price. And we know there's always going to be trading going on these exchanges, regardless of if price is going up or down. So in the long run, they might not do the crazy highs that you expect to see on some of these other alts, but they are slow, steady grinders, and they are generally really reliable. And I wanted to call this out. So right now, in this moment, we've got 35 altcoins that have been outperforming Bitcoin over the last 90 days. And I'm just going to point out, here's a centralized exchange token. Here's one. Here's one. Let's see. Here's one. Here's one. Here's one. Here's one. And then in here also is a couple of decentralized, like perp dex tokens, like Aster and Mint. And I think there was one other one. So out of this 35, about 7 to 10 of them are centralized exchange tokens. And so this is just kind of going to show that this is a sector that I think is underreported and maybe undervalued, but it generally continues to do well. And it's a solid, reliable, I think, crypto asset bet for just something to have in your portfolio to kind of temper some of that volatility and just have like some steady gainers in there that that are going to keep crunching upwards. And so yeah, just think about that. And I'll kind of just call it the symbols briefly real quick. We've got GT, which is the gate token, BGB, Leo, KCS, Crow, BNB, MNT, OKB, Aster, So all of those. Although maybe caveat with Aster, but like generally, and you could put hype in that mix too. Hype is, yes, it hasn't been outperforming necessarily over the last 90 days, but I think it's a solid one too that has that mechanism that I spoke to where they take the fees and they use it to buy back the tokens, and it will continue to do well also. So outside of that top 10 initially that I spoke about, I would say give some attention, do some research on centralized exchange tokens, and if that makes sense to you, then maybe that might be a good place to put some money.
Lovely bit of alpha there, as always, Kris. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. This has been Trading the Markets. We'll be back on Monday for our live show in Discord. So again, if you're not a Connect member, go ahead and join. You can join us on Monday, ask your questions live in the Discord, and join the waitlist, guys. Something is definitely coming. There are rewards for those that sign up. I have heard stories that the intern is considering going rogue on this, so definitely worth your while to sign up and see what we've got coming. Until Monday, everyone, don't fuck this up. We'll see you all then.